Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome to my reading life. Happy March everybody! Today I am here with my non-middle grade March TBR. I have my cup of tea. Today I am drinking my current favorite, Yorkshire Gold. Let me take a quick sip and we will get right to the books. Okay, I had originally planned to keep this TBR very small because I want to read as much middle grade as I can in March. But I also want to participate in March Mystery Madness. I need to read some books off of my TBR 24 in 24. And of course, I want to make progress on my 50 and my 50th TBR challenge. So, that's a lot. And then I also heard about the Irish Readathon, and what better types of books to read in March than ones written by an Irish author or set in Ireland? And I have two books that I'm considering for that. Whether or not I actually get to them, we shall see. I have two stacks of books. The first stack are books that I definitely am planning to get to. I say definitely planning because you know how these things go. These are all either buddy or group reads or projects that I'm working on. Let's dive into that stack first, and then we will move on to the stack of books that I would like to get to, but if I don't, or if I don't finish them in March, again, no big deal. The first two books I'm going to talk about are off my TBR 24 in 24 challenge. I actually have all of my books for that challenge right here on the top shelf of my book cart. I did a little rearranging in my reading room and decided to move my book cart over here. But I'm going to make a caveat with one of these books that I have picked for TBR 24 in 24. And that is Grave Mistake by Ngaio Marsh. I put this on my TBR 24 in 24 cart, and then I realized that actually I think I want to read all of Ngaio Marsh's books in order. I don't know that you necessarily need to do that, and over the years I've read a number of her books in whatever random order I stumbled across them, or they were given to me, or I purchased them. But I kind of feel in the same way that I feel about Dorothy L. Sayers, that I just want to start at the beginning and work my way through. That feels very systematic and orderly to me, and I like things like that. So I'm actually going to swap this book out, and this month I'm going to replace it with one of my middle grade books that I've had on my shelf for years. I haven't decided which one is going to take its place yet. It will really just depend what I read this month, but I definitely have books that have been sitting on my shelf for multiple years, and they definitely qualify. I'm going to put this one back on my shelf. I actually have a collection of the first 3 Inspector Allen mysteries by Ngaio Marsh on my shelf, and I will probably get to that one this year instead of this one. The next book I pulled off from my TBR 24 in 24 challenge is another mystery. I'll be reading this for March Mystery Madness, and that is Footsteps in the Dark by Georgette Heyer. I've enjoyed the few Georgette Heyer mysteries that I have already read. I think I've read 2 or 3, and I have 3 more on my unread shelf waiting to be read, and this is the one that's going to be up next. This book is about siblings, Peter, Celia, and Margaret, and it sounds like they inherit the Priory, which is a rundown estate that was owned by their late uncle, and a murder victim is discovered, and while they once thought that there was nothing concerning about this musty, dusty old estate, now becomes quite concerning, and of course they need to solve the mystery. Sounds really good. I'm looking forward to this one very much. Next up is a buddy read that I have planned with my friend Elizabeth from Instagram, and that is Laurie Colwin's Family Happiness. This is a reread for me. I've read everything Laurie Colwin has written, and I haven't read this one for decades. I think I last read it in my 20s. This one follows Polly, and she's a happy wife and mother, but then she unexpectedly has an affair with a painter named Lincoln Bennett. And it's just all about Polly's life and how she deals with it and what happens to her as a result of this affair. Laurie Colwin deals with relationships and love and romance, and I always find her books insightful and they really make you think about relationships, and I appreciate that. I'm very much looking forward to this one. My next book is my book group pick for March, and that is The Friendly Air by Elizabeth Cadell. I mentioned this book in my January book haul, but this is about Emma Chalice, and she is a temporary companion to Lady Grantley, and they have gone to Portugal. She took on the task at the request of her fiance, but then she meets a handsome local lawyer. So it sounds like maybe there's a bit of a love triangle, and what will Emma do? And I can't wait to find out. This is my first Elizabeth Cadell, and I'm really excited to read this one. Plus, I just love this cover. So fun. Next is my third book for my Lord Peter Wimsey read-through, and that is Unnatural Death by Dorothy L. Sayers. In this one, we follow Lord Peter when a wealthy old woman dies much sooner than the doctor expected. Did she suddenly succumb to illness, or was it murder? Lord Peter Wimsey investigates with the help of his trusted manservant Bunter and Miss Alexandra Catherine Clemson, a gossipy spinster with a gift for asking the right questions. The intricate trail leads from a beautiful Hampshire village to a fashionable London flat where a deliberate test of amour staged by the detective will expose the elusive truth once and for all. I really feel like this series gets stronger as it goes along, and I am very hopeful that I'll like this one even more than I liked book 2. The next book I'm planning to read is my pick for Read Christie 2024 for this month, and it is another Tommy and Tuppence mystery. Actually, it's a collection of short stories about Tommy and Tuppence, and that is Partners in Crime. And I actually just ordered this because my library's copy is not available, and I really enjoyed the first Tommy and Tuppence when I reread it, and I'm looking forward to checking out the short stories. They were written in 1929, they were published in 1929, and they fall right into the 1920s, which is still the decade for March. Next month, we'll move on to the 1930s, and I'm very much looking forward to it and hoping that I can intersperse reading those short stories amongst my other middle grade reads. And then my last book that I'll be working on this month, but I definitely won't be finishing, and I haven't talked about this yet on this channel, I don't think, though I've mentioned it on my Bookstagram account multiple times, and that is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. I am following along with the Wolf Crawl Challenge that was set up by Simon from Footnotes and Tangents, which is both a Substack and his Instagram account. If you want to know more about Wolf Crawl, it is basically I think an entire year-long read-through of the 3 books in the Wolf Hall trilogy. The read-along started in January, and Simon has set up the read-along, so there are pages to read every week. He also posts a sort of discussion blog on Substack, and you can comment in there, and he really gives insightful information, links to outside sources, to other bloggers who are posting about Wolf Hall, and has really been helpful in understanding the story. However, I am struggling a bit with this. I got behind a few weeks ago and I was about to give up, and then one of my Bookstagram friends asked if I wanted to kind of keep each other accountable, so we have been doing that and we've both caught up, but we've been chatting back and forth about how difficult it is to follow what's going on in this story. I'm telling you, I feel like I was never an English major. Hilary Mantel's writing is very dense and is written in a way that's difficult to keep track of. Who is speaking? In what period of time are we? Because the story goes back and forth. Wolf Hall follows Thomas Cromwell, if you're not familiar with it. I've even seen the BBC miniseries they made of Wolf Hall quite a few years ago now. Don't remember it that well, and I enjoyed that, but the book has been a struggle, I will say. I'm determined to finish this one, but I'm not sure if I'm going to continue on in the series. If any of you have read this, if you want to try to convince me to continue on, please do. I own all 3 books, so I hate to say I'm going to give up on the series, but maybe I'll give up on it for the rest of this year. I don't know yet. And I do have to say I switched to the audiobook, which is helping because the narrator does different voices for the different characters when they're speaking. I still can't always keep track of who is who, but it's at least a little more helpful than the printed version where it's not always clear who is talking. That's all I'm going to say about Wolf Hall. Tea break. Now we are going to move on to my stack of really, these are just outlier hopefuls. I have no idea if I will even get to a single one of these, but I have pulled them off my shelf in case I find myself in the mood or with extra time this month. We'll see. I have a lot on my reading plate. First up is actually a book I started last week, and I think I posted about it in my short on here, and that is Demelza by Winston Graham. This is the second book in the Poldark series. I read Ross Poldark last January and really loved it. So Demelza is book 2, and I've just started it. I'm only about 50 pages in, and if I don't finish this in March, that's totally fine. I'm just going to keep on reading it as I have time and enjoying it. It is a fantastic historical fiction series. I am aware of the TV series as well, and I really want to watch it, but I don't want to start it until I am far enough into the series that I'm sure I'm not going to run into any spoilers. If anyone wants to let me know in the comments if the TV show runs like each season is one book, that would be helpful, because then I could go in knowing that like I could watch season 1 already since I've read the first book, and then just hold off until I finish this one to start season 2. Any info you have about that would be fantastic. The next book I pulled off my shelf, I may not read in March, but if I don't, I will most likely read it in April, and that is Wild Strawberries by Angela Thurkell. This is the second book in her Barsetshire Chronicles, and this says, pretty, impecunious Mary Preston, newly arrived as a guest of her Aunt Agnes at the magnificent wooded estate of Rushwater, falls head over heels for handsome playboy David Leslie. Meanwhile, Agnes and her mother, the eccentric matriarch Lady Emily, have hopes of a different, more suitable match for Mary. At the lavish Rushwater dance party, her future happiness hangs in the balance. Sounds utterly delightful. I really love Angela Thurkell's writing style, and I am so looking forward to continuing on with this series. Definitely going to get to this in the next couple of months for sure. And I have the next few books in the series on my shelf already, and maybe 1 or 2 more coming very soon. Okay, the next book I have actually came about because I was watching one of Krista's videos, Krista from Books and Jams, and she mentioned this author, and I think she mentioned this particular book actually in one of her videos, but that is The Orchid House by Lucinda Riley. I have read a few Lucinda Riley books. She writes historical fiction. I feel like she is a bit of a read-alike for Kate Morton. Maybe not quite as strong as Kate Morton, but still really enjoyable. And this one is about a concert pianist, Julia Forrester, who spent many idyllic hours in the hothouse of Wharton Park. And then years later, while struggling with overwhelming grief over the death of her husband and young child, she returns to this tranquil place where she reunites with Kit Crawford, heir to the estate, and her possible salvation. Then they discover an old diary. Julia seeks out her grandmother to learn the truth behind a love affair that almost destroyed the estate. Their search takes them back to the 1940s, and it alternates between Wharton Park and Thailand during World War II. It sounds fantastic. She also likes to write dual timeline stories. It sounds like in this one we'll get the present day story with the concert pianist Julia, and then we will go back in time to the 1940s. Very much looking forward to reading this one. And again, if I don't get to this in March, then I may just move it on to my April TBR. My next book is a book that definitely qualifies for my 50 and my 50th year challenge, because it has been sitting on my shelf for, I can't even tell you how many years I have had this book. And that is A Girl's Guide to Kissing Frogs by Victoria Clayton. I read Moonshine by Victoria Clayton, I think back in the early 2000s, and loved it, and immediately purchased this book because I was determined I was going to read all of her other books and it has literally sat on my shelves ever since. And it sounds like a perfect book for me. It's about a principal dancer at the Lenoir Ballet Company. Her name is Marigold, and she's on her way to becoming prima ballerina. Sounds like she's been having an affair maybe with the ballet director. And then she has an injury and she has to go home to Northumberland to recuperate. And she runs across her childhood friend, Rafe, who is just as delicious as she remembers. And then it sounds like maybe there's another handsome stranger waiting in the wings. A lot going on in this book. And it's very, very long. Her books are chunky, chunky, chunky. This one clocks in at 598 pages. Part of why I haven't read it yet, though I think it'll probably be a fairly quick read once I get going. And it's so funny because I keep pulling this book off my shelf in March to read. I think because the cover is green. And doesn't green mean March? I have my green tea mug, I have my green sweatshirt on, I have my green book. It feels like the perfect month for it. I probably won't get to it though, but hopefully soon. I would love to get to this year for sure. Yeah. If you haven't read Victoria Clayton, I definitely recommend Moonshine, and I will let you know about this one when I finally get to it, hopefully soon. My last two books, I only have two more, and that is it for this TBR. And these would qualify for the Irish Readathon. I don't actually know too much about the Irish Readathon. I will need to go track that down, and I will link any information to that readathon in the description box below. But the first book I have is one I have wanted to read since high school. I think I checked it out from the library and then I just didn't get to it for whatever reason and returned it. And then every time I hear about it or see something about it, I'm intrigued by it, and I have never read it. And that is The Country Girls Trilogy by Edna O'Brien. This is actually a trilogy of books all in one collection. And I think they are always collected this way. I don't know that I've ever seen them like published by themselves. I think they were meant to be read all three together. There's actually an epilogue at the end of this. So it's The Country Girls, The Lonely Girl, Girls in Their Married Bliss. Then there's an epilogue at the end. To me, it makes it sound like they were always meant to be published together. But this is about Kate and Baba. They're two ambitious Irish country girls in search of life. Romantic Kate seeks love, while pragmatic Baba will take whatever she can get. Together, they set out to conquer Dublin and the world. And then I think it's just about their coming of age and their lives in Dublin. And what could be more Irish than that? I would love to get to this in March. Whether I will or not is another story. Maybe I'll at least get it started. And then if I don't finish it, like I said, I can finish it up in the coming weeks, months, as needed. My last book is a book, this author needs no introduction, I don't believe. And that is Maeve Binchy. This is Quentons, and this book is about, I believe, a restaurant. Quentons is a restaurant. There's a woman who wants to film a documentary about the restaurant that will capture the spirit of Dublin from the 1970s to the present day. And I think it's just all about different stories and things. It sounds like this has some recurring characters from other Maeve Binchy books. I have read Evening Class and Tara Road, but it also references Scarlet Feather, which I have not read. Hopefully it won't matter. If you've read this one, can you let me know if it does matter whether I've read those other books before I read this one? I do love Maeve Binchy ever since I read Circle of Friends after the movie came out. I love both the book and the movie, and I have read a number of Maeve Binchy books throughout the years. She's a wonderful writer, and I'm very much looking forward to this one, and maybe this is the month I'll get to it. We shall see. Okay, that is it for my March non-middle grade TBR. I would love to know from you in the comments, have you read any of these books? Did you love them? Is there something that I should really prioritize in addition to all of my middle grade books that I'm reading? I definitely hope to get to those books that were in my first stack, and whether or not I get to any of the books in the second stack will remain to be seen. I hope you have a wonderful March reading month, whatever types of books you decide to read this month. Let me know also, are you participating in Middle Grade March, March Mystery Madness, the Irish Readathon, and what you might be reading for any and all of those? I would love to hear that. I enjoyed chatting with you guys so much in the comments. As always, please give this video a like and please subscribe if you aren't already subscribed and would like to see more bookish content from me. And I will be back with another video very soon. Bye!